Hare Krishna, welcome back to my channel. I am Radhika Piyari and today I am going to share with you the glories of Indira Ekadashi. Yudhishthir Maharaj asked Lord Shri Krishna that, "Hey Madhusudan, please explain to me the glories of that Ekadashi which falls during the dark fortnight of the month of Ashwin, which is September-October. Kindly explain to me this Ekadashi and the glories which are connected to it." So Lord Shri Krishna replies to Yudhishthir Maharaj that, "Hey Yudhishthira, this Ekadashi is so glorious that along with eradicating the sins of a person, it also helps the person's ancestors get rid of any kind of hellish conditions they are suffering and also descend to heaven or to my own personal abode. If one simply hears the glories of Ekadashi, then the merits one gets from this hearing is like same as performing the horse sacrifice or the Ashwamedh Yagya." Then he starts narrating a story from the Satyuga. There was a king whose name was King Indrasena, and he was a very, very powerful king who was ruling the kingdom of Mahishmatipuri. He was so powerful, he was so pious, he was so strong that he was able to destroy all his enemies. Then he was also very spiritually inclined. He was very devoted to Lord Sri Hari, Lord Sri Vishnu, and he was spiritually inclined. He was so religious, and he was also taking care of his subjects. So he was performing his occupational duties also very well. Because of this pious and religious attitude and the performance he was doing, he was never devoid of gold or grains, and also his kingdom was full with sons and grandsons. So he was actually living a very, very nice life because of his spiritual inclination. So whenever he would get time, he would always have his mind meditated on the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he always liked to remember the Absolute Truth and also chant Lord's name as Govinda, Govinda. He would call out and he would sing. He was very, very spiritual king. So one time what happened was Indrasena, he was sitting in his assembly along with his subjects and his ministers, and then he saw Narada Muni ji, Srila Narada Muni descending from the heaven, from Brahmaloka. The description of Narada Muni given in this story is that he appeared like white as a conch, like a lightning bolt, like a jasmine flower, and looked exactly like a moonlight. And then he was decorated, his hair was decorated with matted hair of reddish color. So when he started descending down, he saw the king saw him, and then he started welcoming him. He welcomed him, he offered his obeisances, offered his pranams, and he praised him so much of his glories, his devotion to Lord, and he welcomed him onto a seat, nice asana, and he made him sit there, and then he washed his feet and he started praying to him. So Narada Muni ji was very, very happy, and he asked the king that, "O king, how are the 7 limbs of your kingdom doing?" So he also asked him about how the occupational duty, how is he performing everything and all that, and also he asked about the 7 limbs. Now in Ekadashi, about the 7 limbs which have been described, I think in the previous Ekadashi also it was discussed. So here he is asking the same thing. So the 7 limbs are actually the king's welfare itself, his ministers, his treasury, his military forces, his allies, the brahmanas, the sacrificial offering which happens in the kingdom. These are the 7 things which Narada Muni actually asked the king about. So the king was smiled and said that everything is going on very good, and because of your mercy that now you have graced this kingdom, now everything has become more successful, everything is going more steady. So thank you for blessing, and please let me know the reason for your visit, that why you are here. Because saintly people, they will always come to grace living entities on the earthly plane, and there is a specific reason why they are coming to meet the kings. Sri Narada Muni tells him that when he was descending from Brahmaloka to Yamaloka, he met with Yamraj and he gave him his blessings, and he was praising Yamraj for how wonderfully he is performing this very difficult job, and he was praising him for his truthfulness and everything, and they both were greeting each other. And by that time actually Narada Muni ji sees his father, King Indrasena's father, in the assembly of Yamraj. So when he sees him, he meets him, Actually, the father of Indrasena, he actually requests Narad Muni, saying that please tell my son to perform this Indira Ekadashi because of my past sinful activity, which was breaking a fast on Ekadashi prematurely, one of the Ekadashis prematurely. I had to come to Yamaloka and stay here. So please ask my son to perform this Indira Ekadashi so that I can be out from this hellish condition and go upward in the heavenly plane. So philosophically speaking, a person, especially or a living entity, especially in human form of life, they have to perform the occupational duty and then eventually devote themselves in such a way that they can traverse their path back to the spiritual world or go back home, back to Godhead. And as stated in the Garuda Purana, it has been mentioned that how it is technically actually impossible for a person or for a soul to practice Krishna consciousness in the hellish world or in the hellish planet. Why is that? Because the reactionary suffering of the in the hellish regions or in the hellish planet is such that even the observational experience is such that there is no mental peace. So to practice Krishna consciousness, especially in the Garuda Purana, it is mentioned that one has to have some mental peace, and being in the hellish planet, it is completely impossible to actually do that, either with one's own suffering and also by observing other people's other souls suffering. So that is why this request is actually made by Indrasena's King Indrasena's father to Narad Muniji, so that this can he can get this message and perform the Ekadashi. Now, in the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, it has been mentioned that anyone who gives charity in the name of the person who is suffering in the hellish planet, or their forefathers, especially the ancestors, then the ancestors get relieved from the hellish condition and they go to the heavenly planets. But if one fasts on this Ekadashi for the ancestors and give the merits of this particular Ekadashi to the ancestors or to their forefathers, then what happens is that those forefathers, they directly go to the spiritual world, and this is actually mentioned in the Brahma Vaivarta Purana. Now, after hearing this astonishing news from Shri Narad Muni, Indrasena becomes very shocked and also very much curious that how he can perform this particular Ekadashi nicely so that his father gets released from the hellish condition or the hellish planet he is residing at. So he asks very humbly Narad Muni that please explain to me that how I can perform this fast with full faith and devotion, and what are the rules and regulations one has to perform in order to have the complete merit, like get the complete merit of this fasting. So Shri Narad Muni explains to him how to follow this fast. So first he says that this Ekadashi is called Indira Ekadashi, which falls during the dark fortnight of the month of Ashwina. On the Dashami Tithi, which is one day before the Ekadashi, one has to wake up early in the morning and nicely bathe, offer their respects to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, offer some service in full faith, and then after that, in the afternoon time, again bathe or again take shower, and then they offer their oblations to their forefathers, make prayers and pranams to them, making sure that they eat only once a day. Okay, a person eats only once a day and also sleeps on the floor on that day. Now, on the day of Ekadashi, wake up again early in the morning, make sure to wash thoroughly the mouth and the teeth, then go in front of the Lord, make his pranams and prayers, and offer and make a vow in front of the Lord that today I am going to fast completely on this Ekadashi, and I will be making sure that I am not connected to any kind of sense enjoyment. So I'll completely give up the sense enjoyment. So, Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, please give me your shelter at your lotus feet. In the noon time, he goes in front of the sacred form of the Shaligram Shila, offers prayers and whatever rules and regulations are needed to be performed in order to worship the Shaligram Shila. In that manner, the person has to perform that. Then offer ghee as oblations to the forefathers, some tarpana, whatever is needed. Then after that, also offer non-grain prasad to the Brahmins on this day. And then the food tarpana which was offered to the forefathers, that tarpana he smells it and then gives it to the cow. Then after that, he goes to worship Lord Rishikesha with some incense and flowers, and that particular night sleeps near the deity of Lord Keshava. The next day on the Dwadashi Tithi, then this person has to worship the Lord and make the prayer that I completed my fast and everything, and then nicely bathe, and then make a sumptuous feed the brahmanas, then his relatives, and then in the end take the meal itself. Now the merit which is obtained through this kind of fasting with full faith and devotion, then this merit has to be given to that particular ancestor or the forefather. So after doing this, what happens is that the person who's suffering, or the forefather or the ancestor is suffering in the hellish condition, they get relieved from that particular state, and they also go to the spiritual world. So after hearing this thing from Shri Narada Muni, Indrasena performed this particular Ekadashi in association with his relatives and his relatives and also his subjects, and then the results which was obtained, then he offered it to his father. And actually, because it was the time of Satyuga, when he offered when he followed this kind of fast, he saw his father rising up from the hellish planet, and he's going like in a very bright light, and he's going up and going to the abode of, on the back of Garuda, to the abode of Lord Srihari. He himself, after performing this Ekadashi, he actually saw that there were no kind of obstacles in his ruling of the kingdom. He was so devoted already, so he was not facing any issues after that. And then after his very life also, he went to the spiritual world. So Lord Shri Krishna said to Yudhishthira Maharaj that, "O Yudhishthira, that this is the glories of this particular Ekadashi, that when they perform this Ekadashi with full faith, with full devotion and fast completely on this Ekadashi, then they after, not just in this life, like they make their life successful, this particular life, but also after this life they come to my abode and reside with me." So this is the glories of Indira Ekadashi. Make sure to perform this fast. I mean, there are a lot of rules and regulations mentioned in this particular fast, so at least to whatever degree you can perform this fast, please do it. Try to chant more rounds and a little bit austerity, which will help. And keep reading about Krishna, keep hearing about Krishna, his devotees, his pastimes, and be absorbed in that thought, and make this particular fasting successful. So thank you so much for watching. Hare Krishna.